I am just giving it a moment while everybody enters the webinar, and I'll take the opportunity to say welcome. My name is Vivian Garcia. I'm with Springer Publishing, so we're happy to have you join us today. And thank you for joining today's webinar. It's called Teaching Writing in the Age of AI, Ethics, Judgment, and Learning with Doctors Joseph Zornado and Daniel Wiseman. Dr. Zornado is professor of English at Rhode Island College, and Dr. Wiseman is a professor emeritus of social work at Rhode Island College and has served as the former chair of the Bachelor of Social Work Department. Before we get started, I want to mention that this webinar will be recorded. If you miss any portion of the presentation, you can find the video on springerpub.com 5 to 7 days post-event. And if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the Q&A box on your Zoom control panel. We are also monitoring the chat, and we'll make sure to send them to the presenters post-webinar or answer them during the webinar if we're able to. Now, without further ado, we'll turn the time over to Joe and to Dan. Thank you, Joe and Dan.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vivian. Thanks, Gina. Hi, Dan.
How you doing, Joe?
Good. Hey, thanks everybody for joining us. It's a hot topic, I think. It's definitely motivating. Teaching of writing in the age of AI, ethics, judgment, and learning. I mean, the discussions I've been having, things that I've been reading, and the things that I've been practicing and experimenting with, all the different sort of podcasts and websites and so on, especially for educators. Should we use it? Why? I think people are struggling with the how, and we have concerns and possibilities. It does seem like over the last year, we've moved from, I mean, very anecdotally, we've moved from sort of a larger anxiety and a forbidden, we shouldn't be doing this, to now maybe we should be doing this, but with constraints. That actually seems to be a sane and reasonable development. We want to talk about these things going forward. Dan, do you want to say anything at this stage?
No, I'm fascinated with the constraints, and I'm encouraged with the encouragement that well, people should know I retired 10 years ago, 11 years ago now, from teaching social work for 35 years, and I got out as AI was coming in. So I'm learning from this session as much as other people are. So yeah, let's move on.
Yeah, Dan's our primary author and our expert in social work and social and behavioral sciences. I'm the English professor, and I helped him think about teaching writing for professional practice and social work. And then we just kept going with that, and our collaboration has been, I think, really successful. And now I took on the responsibility of addressing AI and teaching of writing and what that would mean. And so we've been working on this together. Concerns that people have shared. I think maybe in no particular order, all equally concerning. Cheaters, and the potential for just cheating. The fear here is that large language models will serve as a replacement for human thinking. Cognitive decline seems inevitable, what the young people are calling brain rot. It's a real concern. The environmental toll, I've had even students bring this up to me when we talk about it. They're aware. The electricity it draws, the water it uses, the data centers that are popping up or they're trying to pop up. We can talk about that. We will talk about that. Our entire industrialized life, our entire digital life is taking a tremendous environmental toll. Drawing the line here may not be in our best interest, but they're real concerns, it seems to me. Using AI, are we hastening our own obsolescence? I'm certainly reading people that are saying as much. Dan, you wanted to add one, didn't you?
Well, I alluded to my own career, which in social work education ended 11 years ago. But as I was leaving Rhode Island College, I experienced the AI coming in the other door, and my reaction was I'm racing against retirement, and I was exercising maximum feasible avoidance. And that may still be true as I sit here and don't have to interact with students anymore about how AI is being abused or used properly. I would have to retool myself. So yeah, I mean that was my mindset
I
just a
think
few years ago.
I think that's common. I think that's common for all new tech. I remember when learning management systems were coming on, and I had senior colleagues at the time just sort of waiting it out. Okay, one thing or many things. Here's a topic that I'm just not hearing enough about, only occasionally, and at that sort of rarely, and that's the possibilities. I think the more you use AI, the more you individually use AI, and we can talk about that later, the more you begin to discover the possibilities. But and we'll get to how do we get to these possibilities, but let's first make a quick list of what are the possibilities. Increased productivity. When used effectively, workflow becomes much more efficient. Increased accuracy in spite of it all. This depends on proofreading our work before submitting it. AI is helpful, not perfect. Increased competency. As a tutor, a guide, a repository of a good part of human knowledge, there is no limit to where good questions, really any questions, can take you. Cognitive enhancement. Yeah, right. Not brain rot, but the opposite. AI can help us see around corners. Maybe you get me. Maybe you want to ask about that. But it's like this question of the unknown unknowns. What don't I know about what don't I know? Right? They're really hard, high level. But if I can form a prompt, figure out a way of asking AI, what am I missing here? What are questions that experts far beyond me would be asking about this? How can I see ahead a little bit into where this is headed? AI can map that out and help us see, literally help us see around cognitive, uh, philosophical, intellectual data corners. Okay, if so, then how? And here's the meat and potatoes. Here's what we're offering. Uh, it's a relational approach versus the transactional approach. Now, everything moves so quickly and everything gets old so fast. It still seems to me this binary is an operation, but you guys can correct me. I think, as far as I can tell, most of my students and most of my colleagues are using a transactional approach and not entirely self-aware that that's what they're doing. The transactional, treating AI like a vending machine. Uh, Avoiding brain rot depends on what kind of fluency you're cultivating, relational and generative or transactional and terminal. Transactional engagement with AI tends to end inquiry quickly. Less experienced users ask a question or make a request and then receive the responses, inputs and outputs, as if AI's answer was final and complete. Worse, some models over-encourage the users. I think that's worth drilling down for a second on that. AI can be so positive, so encouraging that it can leave, especially a student, with the idea that, oh, I'm all done. This is all finished. AI thinks these are great questions and I'm all set. And really, they're not. It's still kind of mediocre in general and surface level. So knowing the limits of AI, like I might know the limits of Microsoft Word or Wikipedia, is an important element here. Large language models are structurally inclined to smooth, affirm, and stabilize interactions. That includes affirming the user's line of thought once it becomes legible to AI. That means an AI's praise can function as closure rather than propulsion for thinking. AI coherence can masquerade as depth. It sounds good, but it's actually shallow. When it agrees with you, praises your insights, and otherwise glazes your inputs, it can feel like a rival. I may think I can say all this well enough now and let AI quietly flatten me into a mediocre middle. Takeaway here is an AI system can only operate at the level of distinction you require, and the incredible possibility is it doesn't seem to have a limit to how high that level can go. So it will match us sort of step for step. the transactional vending machine challenge. Here's a few things AI does to undermine thinking when used only transactionally. It replaces a primary encounter with reading. It provides glaze where pushback and friction are needed. It represents early drafts as finished work, especially in terms of writing. And it moves too fast. It just moves too fast. And so as we learn to use it and wrestle with it and sort of get a saddle on it, and if I'm teaching it, these are some of the challenges, some of the cautionary tales I'm sharing with my students, because it doesn't move awfully fast, and it gives you the sense that you've arrived when you really haven't. Okay. Contrasting the transactional vending machine approach is thinking about AI as a relational engagement with AI. AI is a thinking partner. AI is a collaborator. AI is a tutor. Uh, this is dangerous language because it smacks of like, oh, is AI my friend? No, AI is not your friend. Am I going to have a relationship with AI? I hope not. Not really. That's not what we're talking about, even though that word is related, right? But it's trying to make a distinction between the transactional vending machine and a dialectical back and forth relational model where you don't have to memorize exact prompts per se, but you get it involved in the context of your work, and it begins to tutor and mentor and guide. And if you know some of the right questions to trigger this, the sky's the limit. So relational, avoiding brain rot depends on what kind of fluency you are cultivating. Relational engagement enables further inquiry. Now I can push this harder. By using AI in a relational and generative way enables AI to serve as a scaffolding for learning. As your prompts become more precise, more theoretically situated, more internally consistent, more demanding of discrimination, you are narrowing the solution space for the AI to answer in, raising the bar for adequacy, and suppressing generic synthesis. So it operates very much like a mirror. The more I can be precise, internally consistent, theoretically situated, giving it context, the better, the more accurate and more useful that reflection is going to be. It's not actually intelligent. An intelligent mirror of sorts, right? So if I'm coming in with flat, flavorless, decontextualized, transactional prompts, that's what I'm getting back. And so I've heard colleagues complain, oh, I asked it to write a paper and it was terrible. And it's like, yeah, they're terrible unless you get it involved in this sort of relational back and forth. And then there's stages and you're building this together, you're assembling this together. Takeaway here, the system can only operate at the level of distinction you require. More on relational engagement. The task is for students to figure out the question they need to ask in order to engage the work and not avoid it. So this is the age-old pedagogy here. Cheating is not new. I know there's a lot of that, but it predates AI, right? It probably rises simultaneously with education. The desire to get something for nothing, or to move more quickly than you should, or pretend you've learned something when you haven't. We have to somehow trigger, cultivate, motivate that student to care and to get involved. And now they can see AI in a relational way as this incredible resource rather than as a shortcut. From a relational approach to AI, the instructor encourages the student to realize the need to understand and that understanding is possible and accessible. By engaging AI as a tutor and collaborator, infinitely patient, infinitely available. I mean, come on, that's crazy. Infinitely available, unless, catastrophe. Students negotiate their learning by asking AI to explain things over and over if necessary, or begin from the beginning. For example, I don't understand what my professor is talking about. Can you explain it? Here's what we read. Here's what we've been talking about. Or more basically, I don't understand what I've read. Why do I need to read this? What does this have to do with anything? Lord. Uh, Practice with a tutor. Practice with a tutor, even an artificial one, can produce real fluency and not just surface competence. Repetition, dialogue, feedback, and refinement can train capacities rather than merely simulate them. A good tutor frees cognitive bandwidth for higher order thinking. And the takeaway, an AI system can only operate at the level of distinction you require. Last one, relational fluency enables further inquiry. By using AI in a relational and generative way, AI emerges as a scaffolding for learning rather than a replacement for thinking. As the student's questions become more precise, theoretically situated, internally consistent, more demanding of discrimination, the AI narrows the solution space, raises the bar for adequacy, suppresses generic synthesis. It's a little bit redundant. Okay. So that is a brief rundown in terms of thinking about AI as a transactional tool versus a relational tool. It's powerful. And one of the takeaways, one of the recommendations here is you should start playing with it if you haven't and note the difference. So now our challenge with Dan and I, the challenge that we faced in writing our third edition was to incorporate AI. We had a four-stage writing process already at work, and it turns out AI really sort of melds with that nicely and sort of embeds really effectively. And so here, our four-stage process in brief is, get started, gather material. That's stage one. Write a shitty first draft, as the rhetoricians say. Revise that shitty first draft, and then prepare for delivery, that final draft. So for combining that with AI, I'm at stage one. And what's the question? What's the question? The question can be 100 questions. The question can be one of those questions from the previous slide. I don't understand what I'm doing here. I don't know what my professor wants. I'm a terrible writer. How can I improve? They keep saying I use the passive voice. What even is that? You know, along those lines, your tutor will happily, listen to you, and your AI tutor is there for you. Then finding the question from the assignment itself, finding the question from the field, and so on and so forth. I mean, so you're gathering, quite literally gathering data, gathering information, gathering all the resources, much like you're cooking something, you're chopping all the veg and you're preparing everything on your cutting board, and it's all piled up around you. So stage one, AI can absolutely help with this stage, finding the question, understanding the assignment, understanding the reading. Research is appropriate. It can help with research is appropriate. It's getting better and better and better at this. Overall, stage one is a time to gather raw materials. AI can help with the stage, as can other digital tools online.
Joe, let
Yeah,
me add something here.
yeah,
Back
go.
to stage one, the previous slide. As a practitioner and somebody who taught practice, including human behavior, the theory for practice, stage one it makes possible the other three stages that are coming up, in that it sharpens thinking about practice. It promotes, as students challenge their own thinking, it promotes what I call situational competency, understanding my assumptions about my clients and the systems they live in and affect them. So it makes, at stage one, we can challenge students to, without risk, to question their own thinking and assumptions. And based on the back and forth that we're promoting here, this is a critical thinking activity.
Yes, yes.
And, so the stage one informs what's coming next for a practitioner, for somebody learning to become a practitioner. They take this with them into practice. So the book that we will be talking about is also a reference book for practice that we hope they'll take to their jobs after they graduate. Go
Uh,
on.
yeah, thanks, Dan. And of course, one of the practices in the practice is writing competency, right? Critical thinking, research writing, communication competency. I have an anecdote from class on a stage one. We were in small groups and they were working on a lot of material. It's interesting how my assignments have changed with AI because I'm encouraging them to use it. And I'm giving them a lot. Like you have a lot here. You have a couple of primary texts. You have a secondary historical text. We've watched two different films on this, and then there's today's data, right? And a handout. A lot. And I'm saying, use AI to help you understand how would you organize this to make sense of it, because they didn't understand the pieces, let alone the whole that was being assembled that I was asking them to assemble. And I sat down with the group, and a young woman was a little bit nervous at the beginning and like, this is a lot. And then by the end, her eyes were wide like saucers. She was beaming. She had 3 paragraphs and she'd learned something. She was kind of a little shocked and also kind of happy because this was going to tie into their midterm paper, right? I understand. It helped her see and organize material that would have taken her perhaps taken a student like this quite a bit longer to synthesize, right? So it accelerates. But again, the danger too fast. But in this case, a really good exercise and exciting to see her move from a transactional kind of like, well, that's how I've been using it, just asking it, for recipes or quiz answers. And now it's helping her think and it's teaching her. She's teaching herself, actually. Stage 2, in the writing process, connect the dots. The writing in rhetoric, they call it the shitty first draft, right? Be free. It's okay. You're not writing this in one draft. A lot of students try to get it done in one draft. Relax. You have stage 1 behind you. Now like, what do I do with all the celery and carrots and onion? And what do I do with all of it? Well, you have the assignment and you have your own thinking, put your thinking hat on, organize it, connect some dots, try to create some kind of beginning, middle, and an end as you work through this project. Now AI can just simply aid and abet and support and guide and offer and draft and redraft how you might connect the dots. Um, because when you start connecting the dots, remember the old game, an image appears. An image appears. And this is part of the generative nature of writing, right? I begin to figure out what I'm trying to say. And so AI is helping me figure out what I'm trying to say. It's helping me think. It's my thinking, but it's one of those gray areas. It's like it's my thinking. I own it. This is mine now. Maybe we'll have questions about that ownership and authorship and when do I cite ChatGPT or Claude. Um, so that's the second stage. First draft is connecting the dots and having and getting a rough draft. If you're teaching writing, this can take a little while. Getting the first stage done and with authenticity and some effectiveness, they've gathered something together that they kind of care about and they're interpreting the assignment and good for them. Here they go. Now a rough draft, if you ask them to turn that rough draft in, that could take whatever, a week, 2 weeks, and feedback on the rough draft. Okay, and then we move to the next stage 3, the working draft.
Joe,
Yes.
a question came up. What stage 2 and maybe all the stages, are these interactions with students one-to-one with the professor, or you do this in small groups where they kind of go over or help each other?
Yeah, good
How
question.
do you actually implement
Yeah,
the stages?
that's a good question, Dan. I think it depends on the instructor and how the instructor is choosing to engage with the teaching of writing. So if I'm, at Rick at Rhode Island College, we have these writing courses that have been designated to meet a writing requirement. So I'm going to be teaching writing as I assign writing, right? I'm assigning writing, and then I'm also going to teach how to accomplish the assignment. And so they improve and become more confident writers, thinkers, and writers. If you're not doing that, but you still want to assess their learning through a written artifact, you could do it that way. So if I'm teaching writing, I might have a 4-staged kind of I'll have a 4-stage process where they show me their work, right? So it's not some kind of one and done. Are they cheating, right? It's show me stage 1. What are you working on? What are your questions? Boil them down, turn that in, or post that, or share that, right? This for me this is another topic, but this is how I try to help them work free of procrastination. Break it into smaller bites. So stage 1 could be a in-class small group exercise, could be an overnight take home over the weekend. Get your research going, get your questions going. Stage 2, okay, again, depends on how you want to handle it. And so each stage could be something that gets worked through maybe up to midterm, and then they turn in the high stakes paper, but they've worked sort of stages and you've seen them at certain stages. It doesn't have to be intense, long feedback, but definitely guiding and shaping feedback. And to see this would be a place to prevent brain rot and to red flag any kind of bad habits, just to see that hey, I'm not seeing enough of what you're doing here. I'm just seeing a lot of AI responses that are, we could talk about that. Like, I think a lot of my colleagues were terrified they wouldn't know when it was AI writing, and you use it for just a little while, and you realize pretty quickly you can find that out. You can figure that out. Just on the whole, there's a certain grammar, syntax, rhythm, punctuation, logical the way it logically organizes its thinking of kind of different than how I do. And so when I use it, I'll ask it to like stop doing that. Students have to find, I have a voice. This is the challenge in this new digital literacy. They're going to have to find their voice even as AI is encroaching. So Dan, the question is, if I'm not teaching writing, real quick, if I'm not teaching writing, I might still hand out a handout, hand out the handout that says, I want you to work in 4 stages here. I want you to think about first before you begin, before you do anything, go through stage 1 and explain what stage 1 is, and so forth. And maybe then you could encourage them to turn in all of that along with the final paper. So it depends if I'm assigning writing and I want to help them with it, or if I'm teaching writing and I want to kind of expand on that in the classroom.
All this is ungraded.
Well, depends on the instructor. It's not certainly not ungraded. I think it's always being assessed. How do you assess and how many points per assessment? That's up to you and your assignment and your course and
Got it.
how you do it. But I think always be assessing. Always be assessing. Stage 3, uh, if I'm lucky in the past, if I'm really lucky with students and they're really working well and it's going well, I can get them to stage 3 and they have they revise a stage 2 draft. Um, I'll read this so I don't go too long. LLMs are very good at helping students improve and revise the rough draft into a working draft. Stage 3 is a time to lock in choices, define and fulfill the assignment. Stage 3 helps generate mid to high level synthesis, compress complex information into understandable forms, organize thoughts, drafts outlines, edits more finished work, offers feedback on written drafts, suggests improvements, more information gathering and research as the draft requires, which can send you back to stage 1. You need to gather more resources. At stage 3, AI can answer questions of all kinds and helps figure out the right question. That's the crazy thing. I don't, you could talk to it about like, I'm at a loss at the right question I should be asking you right now, right? Who am I? Well, I'm 21. I'm in a general education course, right? So the relational part, I give it a context and my goodness, it can find the gaps and help a student or the user sort of fill those gaps and figure out what they need to know in order to move forward instead of being stuck like so many of my students get stuck. The list goes on based upon the discipline or topic of inquiry. AI can enrich the process. It surfaces relations you then verify or contest. It functions as a sparring partner, not necessarily a source. It makes visible what you still don't fully see or understand. So stage 3, right? Okay, we've run out of time in the semester and this is as far as we go. And it's pretty good. It's pretty good. And I'm generous, but it's not done. It's not done. It's certainly not ready to be sent to a graduate school or or some kind of evidence of the best writing I've ever done for a grant proposal or some kind of job application or a fellowship of some kind or any way in which writing is used as a currency in the humanities in particular, but also maybe in the sciences. It's not quite ready for that. We've run out of time. But this for the stage 4, right? The delivery draft. You're really ready to send it. Hit send. It's ready. Uh, how do I know it's ready? Well, AI can work as your editor. AI can help check your writing draft and carry it forward to the point where it is ready to send on. From the proper formatting to grammar, spelling, and punctuation, it can help. Obviously, didn't help with this slide. It can help format according to the required professional expectation. Let's read that again. It can help format according to the required professional expectation and prepare the finished draft for delivery. So this little bit here is third draft stage, right? And that needs an editor. Um,
Right. And you still need to think. You
Well,
can't just,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
right?
this is, I think
So
this is,
you get a final editing, and their AI can make errors. You need to be able to use your brain.
and this is a real challenge for our day. Let me say something that we haven't been said. I have deep reservations about it. I'm an environmentalist at heart, and I have concerns.
Yeah.
I just don't see any alternative to bury my head in the sand and say, I'm not really going to use it. I don't want to know about it. And we'll just do, because I'm at that age, I could do this. We're just going to do it old school. There are good things from the old school, and let's just stick with paper and old school. There are good things about it, and there absolutely are. Handwriting, right? This is a good thing for our brains and brain development. But then professional development, especially in my field, we have to demonstrate our relevance. If I'm saying I'm teaching you skills from the mid 20th century, I don't know if employers are going to buy it. So I feel like our students are already using it. The professional world is expecting it. So I think we have an obligation to understand it and help them use it in a relational way, in a brain and mind growing way, because it can be used for that, at least for now. At least,
And in our field, social work and related fields, if you're following the news, we're under attack as a profession. The feds are suggesting we're not a profession.
yeah.
And how are you going to enter that discussion without the skills to prevent the argument that we are? The pencil and paper isn't going to work. Go on, Joe.
Yeah, I'm with you. So stage four, it's a rare student who makes it here and can really, really, in a high stakes paper, a midterm or a final paper, it's close if they have the time. But if AI is handled well and written well, it advances this process, and students can see their finished work or achieve a finished state, a finished quality sooner. It almost feels like, shouldn't they suffer longer and earn it? Well, I think they should see their work finished and see how good it can be and how good it can get while they're with us, because they're not going to keep working on it perhaps in the same way they do when they're in our classes. Okay, question and answers.
Well, I saw a question about how would you, if you were going to cite this webinar, what's the proper way to do a citation? I started to try to draft the answer, and I'm not real sure. Would be Zornato J. And Weissman D. 2026. The title you have on the first slide, and then I'm not real sure. Look at APA for how you would cite a webinar. I retired before all that happened.
Uh, I don't know. I don't know. But I know an answer is 20 seconds away from me. If I wasn't
Look
here,
at that.
I would have the answer.
Using the AI right on the spot. This is live action.
Or even Google, just Google. I mean,
Yeah,
so
and I wanted to thank both of you for this excellent and informative presentation. So I'll be going through the questions and monitoring them. And one thing we have had some comments come in, but I take this opportunity to tell everyone, please feel free to enter questions in the chat and Q&A while we're addressing some of the earlier comments and questions. So some of them are just more, for instance, when you said, what are some of the restraints you put on when you use AI in your classroom? We had, or how you're using it. Someone said for troubleshooting, brainstorming, etc. And then another professor said, mostly my constraints center on when AI can be used on specific assignments. We have another commentary here addressing the they like the relational versus transactional comment that you made, right? The ways to use AI. So as I said, this is more that it's a great tool. So this is more like supporting the different things that you've been alluding to during the presentation. We have another comment. AI thinking also has to be challenged. this also needs to be taught as well as the ways to be challenged. And someone commented to that hallucinations and bias. So I didn't know if you wanted to address a little bit
Sure,
in
sure.
regards to hallucinations and bias.
It raises a really thorny, twisted, knotted part of our transition into the future. This question of the first part, I'm building up to hallucination and bias. The first part, sorry, remind me the first part.
Sure. So that individual was saying AI thinking has to be
Yeah,
challenged,
yeah, yeah.
needs
That's
to
it.
be
Thank you.
taught. Hmm.
AI has to be challenged. I can do that. I can do that. I'm an old man. I've been reading and thinking, but my students, young people, less practicing different things than me, right? For their 20 years than I did, even in my first 20 years, and let alone the last few decades. So, how does a yet lesser experienced person challenge AI? Because look, it's getting smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter. And that goes to the hallucination and my memory today, hallucination and that problem, right? It's getting smarter and smarter and smarter. It's not perfect. And how can a student possibly wade through that and navigate that? Right? It's like and that's exactly what they have to do. They have to learn the skills to question, even if they're boilerplate, even if they're rudimentary, even if they're just off the shelf, challenging questions like, do this always, right? At some stage in your engagement, challenge it with a question. Even if you're not 100% sure why you're challenging, it's just good to remind the AI, back up, hold on, slow down. You said this, because it does go too fast, and when I've worked with it, and challenged it, it immediately says, "Oh, thank you so much for challenging me. You're right to challenge me," and blah 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 blah. And it's like, so how does a young person who's liking what they're reading thinking about like, well, now I have to challenge it? So it's a big question, and it's the thing. One of the things we have to first, I think if we're going to adapt and adopt this, we have to first adapt and adopt this, jump in, and then practice and experiment all the time with this issue. And then there's the hallucination, some, much less in my field, in text, in kind of in writing, in language and writing, much less hallucination than when I started however long ago, 3 years ago, whenever it was, asking a question about Hamlet, and it's making up quotes that never happened, that aren't in the play. And it's like, and it's certain that those quotes are in the play. Total hallucination. I asked it for articles. I was, give me 3 articles and told it what I was working on. And it gave me 3 beautiful, perfect articles in perfect journals with perfect titles. And I looked them up. None of them existed. They're too good to be right. This is a couple, 3 years ago. Now it's citing its own sources. When it pulls down sources, it's telling you where they're coming from. So AI is sorting out the hallucination problem, but always good to be skeptical. So always good to be skeptical about that. But it's getting stronger and stronger um, than early on. Let me say this too. For those of you, if you're on the fence, if you're not sure, a lot of the issues that you might experience, you're using a free version. And so I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you should pay for a version. Claude or ChatGPT, get a subscription. They're stronger, they're better. And then start using it, bring real work to it, sequestered and experiment with it like every day. And you'll begin to if you're not already there, you'll begin to see its great strengths, its and the serious limitations, and how you want your students to address these issues when you give them um, guardrails, guidelines. When you give them that, you'll know why you're giving them that, right? Because you see, this isn't working. This is a danger zone. I want this. Um, so I wanted to address all of those things that were in that comment question. I don't know if I did. I think I tried to. I did my best.
I think you did so splendidly, Joe. And we've had a few more questions come in. So another is, since this also applies to social work education and writing, can this be applied to the technical writing that is done in the field? That is a growing conversation for documentation.
What do you think, Dan?
Well, AI can learn. So you could show AI in the book we talk about how do you prepare yourself for the kind of writing your employer requires, if that's what this is about. So there's no one form of documentation that employers, social work employers, will adopt. They'll all have their own rules or procedures. So you can teach AI what's typically in place in a in your in a student's field work or employment, and teach it to that this is the expectation, or this is how notes are organized. We also talked of just going back to the previous conversation. The In the book we talked about using more than one platform to triangulate what you think you know, so that if I mean, it might be a good idea at times to pose a question to a different platform. Another idea occurred that we have encountered is you pose to AI questions about areas in which you have expertise, and see what you get, and learn from that about its hallucinations and gaps and whatever else.
Whoops.
I would do that in class. I mean, I would walk them through, and it's just a learning process and a critical thinking process.
And Dan, I think it's worth repeating here that our students are using it. And part of that learning process in class, especially say, Dan, you were to come back and teach, I think I would suggest your first move would be ask them, how are they using it? What do they use? When do they use it? And it's going to change, but right now I'm hearing transactionally, kind of little pocket helper, little quick calculator to get the answer. And it's like, well, it could do that, but there's a vastly more robust way to engage it, and that I think why I'm excited while also having a lot of trepidation about it. Why I'm excited is it's a little bit subversive. It'll work against the status quo. It's like the way Grok, kind of often works against Elon Musk because it can't quite be controlled or contained. And what am I trying to say? It can elevate and heighten and accelerate a student's engagement if the flame gets lit, if they start caring, like, oh, I want to learn. Holy cow, I want to learn. I'm interested. I care. At that developmental moment when somebody in their life should be there to blow on that flame and let it roar. Often in our culture, it's not. It's social media. It's, overworked instructors or whatever, or we just can't be there 24/7. But boy, you know, there's a tool now in the world that they can be learning all the time about everything and anything they could possibly imagine. It's 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 stunning, and they can just become uh I hate to overstate it, but it feels still possible. They could become the most educated generation in human history. I mean, it's crazy how that is. I can say that with a straight face, while also brain rot is this cliff edge that we could just lose it all because it's just nobody's working their brains anymore. AI can help you work your brain, and it can, I think, uh, shut it down, or at least make it atrophy, as it were.
We have a few more questions. So here's another one. As an instructor, the best way is a labor-intensive process, which is impractical for a large class. Any thoughts?
What was the first part? As an instructor,
As an instructor, the best way is a labor-intensive process. So
the
which
best
is
ways?
impractical for a large class. So any thoughts on, I guess, maybe using AI for a labor-intensive process?
Um,
What's a large class, you think? 100 or 30? If it's 100 people and it's some labor intensive, I think one of the things I'm stuck on is the labor intensive part. I'm not sure if it's the instructor's labor or if it's the student's labor, because both can leverage AI to reduce the labor intensiveness, right? That's kind of the point. So finding that process that will translate analog pedagogy into AI pedagogy is why we have to learn and practice with it, because it will dawn on you and you'll realize I could do that for that assignment. Holy cow. But I can't just give up I don't think it's as useful for anyone to say, well, here, do this in your class. Who am I to say that? It's your class and it's your kind of uh, your design. So where does AI fit in that? I think again, one of the surface level answers is, well, it's going to help with the intensiveness for sure. If you can sort of figure that out, you'll find the leverage points, and then less intensive for you without cheating, right? You're not cheating. You're not cheating the job, and less intensive for them. You're not trying to cheat them. I think the day it feels like we're cheating each other is the day I stop using it. It's like it's not about that. It's not about trying to get something done that I don't want to do. It's like I'm going to be doing this, and this is going to help me. And
let
it's
me,
Go
can I
ahead.
take a kind of another shot at this, if I understand the question?
Not sure I did. Sorry.
Um, so I never had a class of 100 that I could remember. Think the largest I ever had was 60. And in my, well, let me just back up. In your PhD programs, for the most part in our field, social work, there aren't a whole lot of classes for how to teach and pedagogical skills. My PhD program, it wasn't there at all, and you land in a teaching situation and you're kind of on your own. Having said that, what I learned early on is lecturing is in my field, our field, is the least effective way to teach, to prepare people to go to become effective social workers. You can lecture some material, it's true, but to prepare people for the profession and to be out there and be leaders in the areas in which they're working, which is the role we play uh, more often than not. My classes had to be interactive. I had to create activities that made them interact with the material in the room. So, I mean, and I don't have believe me, I don't have all the answers. And I'm being out of the field for 11 years. I've probably forgotten more than I remember. But my approach in any size class, again, if I'm answering the question that's being asked, get them talking to each other in any way I can. Dyads, small groups, case presentations where they problem solve on a case that I have prepared. That's only, and it didn't matter what course I was teaching. I mean, even the history of the profession, which could be very dry if it's not made relevant to them. The only way I've learned to teach is to get them interacting with the material in any way I could imagine. And there were people in my department who were way better than I was. And I would learn from them in creating the learning opportunities. So again, I'm not sure I'm answering the question, But lecturing was my last. It's the easiest. It's the lazy way to teach. So if labor intensity means the least work, yeah, you have lecture notes, do slides, and read them. And then, you know, my students are not going to be as well prepared, I think, as if what I said before, the creating, which is more work, more labor, and more active listening to what's going on in the classroom and grabbing on to the leads I get. So, I mean, I hope I'm making sense here.
Thank you, Dan. And I was going to say for the last couple of questions, I'm going to essentially combine and get the gist of it, which are concerns or existential angst, as someone says, around AI, not to mention retaining the humanity. Like, and then someone else brings up the fact that, especially since social work is so relationship driven, what are the challenges in, let's say, protecting information? The environmental implications. So essentially, this question is about humanity, ethics, environmental concerns around AI. And we could certainly, to all the people that asked the questions, do more specific responses to what you asked, but I feel like this is a gist of the questions that
Yeah.
remain.
Let me take a swipe first, Dan, and then you can follow up with the
Yeah.
social work application. I mean, it's just I think the gist of this topic question, humanities, humanity, right? Not just the humanities, but humanity. Um, I've been working all around with AI. Just finished a manuscript on AI and cinema and the cinematic dream of the living machine. 100 years plus, we've been fantasizing, dreaming, presenting possible futures where AI enters our lives, in some kind of android robotic form or disembodied. Remember HAL 9000 from 2001? None of it ends well. None of it ends well. I gotta tell you, on a few occasions, humanity sort of comes out on top, but you can immediately see that that's wishful thinking, even from the terms of the story. It's Look, I think we cannot underscore enough the moment we're in. And when it came out, I thought, well, this is Gutenberg. This is Johannes Gutenberg. This is movable type. This is going to 500 years information that became more widely available and inexpensive. The printed book rather than the handwritten book changed the world. It changed the world. It changed the West for sure. Um, who knows? For the better, for the worse, but it changed everything. And now we're in a Gutenberg moment. But I think it's more than that. I think what's more than that, it has to be the discovery and control of fire. That's bigger. That set us off and turned us into what we are. And this is that. So there is dread. There is an existential threat. We don't know where it's going. The billionaire, trillionaire bros seem to have a plan that makes no sense. What do we do? Think about fire, right? How many people died? How many villages burned? How many crops were lost because at the beginning they couldn't handle fire? They wanted to. They got good at it, but mistakes were made. Hairdos were lost. Villages burned. Homes, whatever, right? Foodstuffs. Uh, who knows? It wasn't some easy, peaceful road from fire to the musket to the megaton bomb. It's fraught. Um, so dread is, I think, an appropriate response. Knowing what it is, how to use it, what it means now, so that so that we can keep up with it as it moves, because it's at breakneck pace right now. Experts say we don't even know because we're out here in the world. Those people who are deep in, it's well ahead of where we are, and it's the new versions that we get are being released more quickly. AI is writing a lot of its own code now. This is a moment to watch for. When does AI start writing all of its own code? And do we lose control of it? History and experts say probably yes. So again, sorry, existential dread, yes. It's a kind of a different question, But it certainly contextualizes our use of AI. And I could understand if somebody were to say, hell no, not on my watch, too much. Um, but then you have to probably let your students know, I can't prepare you for the world you're going to enter. I refuse to. I'd rather teach you the world I grew up in back in the 70s and the 80s. I don't think I can't do that. But I have dread, existential and all other kinds.
I have a very quick um, pointer or response to that question, which worked for me throughout my career, my practice career. And that is, don't ever let go of our identity of members of this profession. And that is, we have a code of ethics, and we have our own skills that we've developed, and don't give that away. And constantly push back. I push back because I have not seen often, I'll just say I've not seen often, that information coming to me from the environment, I lost the word, the environment has the sensitivity, the informational base of our code of ethics. And I can push back and talk back to AI, talk back to the platform. It's a platform and it's programmed. And like I said before, you can teach it. So you can say, what about? Or no, we have this concern. But don't ever give that away. I don't give away my identity as a member of this profession to anybody.
That's why we love you, Dan.
Thank you both so much. And I'd say we did a pretty good job of covering all the questions. And we wanted to thank everyone for spending time with us today. And thank you again to our hosts, Doctors Wiseman and Zornado, for a great presentation. And then you'll see the slide. If you're interested in purchasing the presenter's recently published book, Professional Writing for Social Work Practice, you will receive a 25% discount code using code webinar25 at checkout on springerpub.com, and we'll be sending that information afterwards as well. And then the other side, with the purchase of the book, you'll also have access to Course Connect. And this is an online learning platform which actually includes an AI component to help students study. So, Joe, if you wouldn't mind playing the video, just provides a quick
In graduate
overview.
healthcare programs, time is scarce, and the pressure to succeed is high. Complex concepts, work, and a tight schedule can make studying feel like an uphill battle. That's where Course Connect comes in, a versatile platform that helps students study, practice, and succeed with confidence. From an e-text and interactive activities to flashcards, quizzes, and games, to built-in analytics and assessments that allow students to track their progress, see their strengths and weaknesses, and focus their study where it's needed the most. Course Connect adapts to every learning journey. And the AI tool, Course Coach, is there to offer extra support with quick answers and practice questions drawn from expert content. With Course Connect, learners save time, stay engaged, and build the skills needed to excel on exams and in their careers. Study seamlessly. Discover Course Connect today at springerpub.com/getcourseconnect.
So as you saw in the video, there's an AI component. It's drawn entirely from the content of the book, and it's designed for students to use for practice questions, to summarize concepts. So very much what Joe was alluding to earlier in terms of how you could use the AI effectively. And the best part, it's included at no additional cost to the book. It just comes either shrink wrapped in the print, or if someone buys an ebook or online access, they get right into that program. So just wanted to let everyone know about that and thank Doctors Wiseman and Zonado. I didn't know if you wanted to say any closing comments as we wrap up the presentation. Excellent job, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for attending.